Hey everyone, Alex Terrace here, healthhacksreview.com. So in this video I just wanted to show you a quick study that was evaluating whole body vibration machines, or just that kind of modality or training exercise. And so in this one, the point of this video is just to illustrate that they were doing studies on the type of a popular type of vibration machine that does three different types of plate motion. So when you're shopping around out there reviewing them, you'll see many times oscillation or pivotal. It means the same thing. It's like a seesaw motion. You'll also see linear or lineal, which is like an elevator. The whole floor of the plate moves up and down. So you see also that type of movement. And for some machines, you'll also see marketed. They will have a spiral. They call it a spiral or elliptical, and or lateral or triplanar. Okay, so basically all those different ones, that has more to do with how the plate moves in a more of a horizontal plane of motion, basically. Okay, so more horizontally versus vertically, right? So I've been saying for years and years and years that these oftentimes dual motor machines that have like a more lateral or horizontal type of movement is useless. It doesn't really provide the body with anything. And so here's like a study basically showing that they don't tell you the name brand that they were using, but it doesn't matter because that type of plates that basically have some horizontal movement is sold under many brand names and grossly overpriced as well. So here they were testing out all the different planes of motion. And why this is also a good study is because this is very relevant to the new power plate. So post 2011, when the partners split up, one guy got the actual machine, the other guy got the brand name so he could market with it. So the guy who got the brand name and marketed it went to China, tried to reverse engineer the original, and they couldn't do it. So they ended up with a plate that wobbled side to side, and they just decided to roll with engineering mistake and call it triplanar. And after that, this concept of a horizontal moving plate was born, and many companies tried to copy that for obvious marketing reasons. Some people claim, oh yeah, I can do all these things, it's so good. And then in the study, they're saying, not really. So basically, they put electrodes on different limbs, lower limbs, and then they had people do a static squat. That just means you're holding, it's like sitting in a chair. You just hold yourself on the vibration platform, and you just hold that squat. And they basically determined that there was absolutely no improved muscle activation in the lower muscles, lower body, with any of the horizontal types of movements. Okay, so that could be triplanar, elliptical, spiral, whatever, lateral. There's no changes. The only thing that showed a significant change in activation of the muscles was the vertical acceleration. So that in this case, it's the pivotal. They were using a pivotal machine. So that means the plate is going up and down, usually like 8 millimeters to 12 millimeters on average. So it's a much bigger movement, like a seesaw. What's also the important thing about this study is not just that these horizontal, movements and companies selling them are trying to just deceive customers, but basically that the only thing that's responsible for actually having some benefits to the body on a muscle level significantly has to do with vertical acceleration, so aka G-force. That's what that means. If you accelerate the plate underneath somebody's foot, and there's again some acceleration force behind that, it temporarily increases the mass that the muscles have to handle, or they have to adapt to or respond to. So in other words, this study also proves that G-force matters, basically. And why that's important is because that's what I rant about all the time. And better companies also talk about. Because most machines out there are very low G-force. And so that basically eliminates a lot of the options out there because they're just very, very, very low. And also allows you to do apples to apples comparison. Would you spend significantly a lot more money for something that is, way low G-force versus something that is less costly, that's way higher G-force? Of course not. You see what I mean? Then you can do an apples to apples comparison once you have the G-force. It also shows you what companies don't want to talk about it because their machines are low G-force, so they might downplay it. So you can basically just X them off your list of options. And then some companies, they don't even give you the specification at all. They don't even tell you what the G-force is. And that also has to do with the fact that most machines only go from 12 to 15 hertz in terms of speed. So the other thing that you have to look up is the stretch reflex response. And that's another big piece of, yes, they got some muscle activation, and it was pretty good, but there's also a lot of other studies that then get more into the science of like acceleration, what acceleration and what speed actually will activate more of the muscles versus less, more of the muscle spindle groups. So you don't know this, but there's different sorts of fibers in your muscles. Some are called slow twitch, medium twitch, fast twitch, or high twitch. So what that means is like when you're bearing a weight and doing some kind of exercise or walking around or whatever, those different muscle groups will be more active. Some will be more active and some less. And they actually fire or twitch at a certain rate. So like the fast twitch group might twitch at like 30, 40, 50 times in a second, okay? So they basically found that if you have like machines that get to higher frequency ranges, you can elicit more of the muscle to actually respond, okay? So there's a couple things that you're seeking out. You're seeking out machines that definitely go beyond 15 hertz, and a lot of companies lie and say they go beyond that. But again, most of them just say they go to 15 or less. So you try to want to get a machine that's faster than that so you can stimulate more of your muscle spindle cells that are normally twitching at a much faster rate. But then it's also, as you know through logic, that it's not just about that speed. It also has to do with the force behind the plate. So some motors have a strong torque. In other words, they can push your weight when you're standing on it. They can push you faster. Okay, if that doesn't make sense. So they have more force behind the movement of the speed. Okay, so I'll give you the analogy is you're seeking out, and I already have a recommendation in the description below on YouTube of what the machine that I like, and I think it's the best price for the specs. But what you're seeking out is something that's higher speed, that meets more of the minimum thresholds they see in the studies, and that stimulate all the different sorts of muscle spindle fibers. And then you also want more acceleration behind it, more force, because you could basically lower a barbell or a weight. You could lower it and you could lift it up and down 5 times, let's say in 1 second, or 2 times or whatever. And that weight might be 50 pounds, pretty heavy. And another weight, you might do 5 pounds, and you can lift it up and put it down the same amount of times, so say 5 times in a second. The speed is the same, 5 times in a second, but the weight is very different. One's 50 pounds, one's 10 times heavier than the other weight. So which one do you think is going to work your muscles more, right? See, so you don't really need to know a lot about exercise science, physiology, biomechanics for you to obviously know that it's not just about the speed, it's also the weight or the acceleration, basically, the mass that's created, hence the G-force. So ideally, you need to find a machine that won't rip you off, a brand that basically has a good acceleration, high G-force, and also gets to a high enough frequency range to make sure that you get the full scope of benefits and stimulate the body and get all the benefits that everybody's always talking about, which come from the studies. If you need any guidance on all this, you can find me on healthhacksreview.com. Just don't hesitate to reach out.